I think we can get all stuck in these logical issues and the ramifications, but to me the point is a lot more organic. I mean, basically, what's waiting to be realized is that every concept that humans use had its start with something at the body level, something we interacted. So our idea of thing was developed actually over millions of years through our sense and motor responsibilities of our brain, which came up with this abstraction for objects that, persist in the world a bit and we can interact with. And oh, there's a fruit and it has the quality of being nutritious and these kinds of things. And we didn't have to think of them as relationships to, our biology and so on and so forth. And we had this idea of thing. But then we push it out to further and further abstraction. So, an equation is a thing, and everything is a thing, and it's a certain way. It's until you guys finally are like, well, if there's something out there. So when I say, well, they're not things out there, people like Gary are all like, you're denying there's things out there. Yeah, I'm denying there's things out there. I'm not denying there's phenomena out there. I just think you mischaracterize them. You've taken your thing metaphor of what it's like to pick a fruit off a tree and you've applied it to phenomena that it doesn't fit too well. And the problems are obvious even at our scales. For example, that old statement, you can't step in the same river twice. That comes from a certain idea of what it is to be a thing. Now, my definition, there's no problem. Of course you can step in the same river twice. The fact that the water is different, that's the nature of that system, that the water is always being refreshed. But it's a system, and what makes it the same thing is this a temporal continuity between the system over time, between the system and itself over time. That it changes over time in this continuous manner. That history, right, is what gives it an identity. Not an inherent identity, but an individuable. A person can identify that system, right? Can separate it somewhat artificially, say, from the weather and river systems in an adjacent canyon. It'd be related. You could look at a system that's all of those together. Now, I would like to have a concept of thing more based on the idea of a river or of a wave. If a wave is coming through some water, we're going to go, look, the wave's blue. Oh, it's red. Oh, look, it's green. Oh, it's yellow. No, the wave is traveling through a multicolored medium. And where it happens to be might be at the red point or at the... And we can understand that the wave appears yellow at this particular time because it's going through the yellow part of the medium. Right? But every moment the wave has different molecules involved with it. And so, what is in the wave? The water in the wave is changing every moment. Is it really in the wave? You should start to realize that your concepts of containment, of how qualities adhere to things, it's all breaking down when you're trying to talk about the identity of a wave. To think of the wave as a thing is fine if you're going to let it change what thing means. But if you're going to come back and go, well, the thing is like a set of qualities that all adhere to one another in the thing. Well, the wave is not well modeled by that. You can force it, like Ptolemy can force perfect circles and spheres into his cosmology and get numbers that really do predict where Mars will be on a particular day to a pretty good accuracy. But he's just missing the point. He's bending over backwards to use tools that are insufficient because he likes those tools more than he likes reality. He wants the Earth to be in the center more than he wants, an elegant or simple or insightful system. Right? So, the real issue is just our model of things. Things, are modeled on this idea of like rocks and bricks and BBs. And that's not what the universe is like. That fruit is more like a wave. When you start to break it down and reduce it to the physics involved, it's more like a wave. You are more like a wave than some static thing with inherent qualities. You're more like a wave. Your material, what is considered included in it, is constantly changing. You know, if you have oxygen molecules from the air being absorbed through your skin, or being, you know, or some other chemical exhausted through your skin, the point at which that molecule is or isn't in your body can't be specified, but it only has to be specified for this inherent quality stuff, where it has to be in or out. There has to be a way to determine. But if you're a wave and things are coming in and out, it sort of changes the focus and what's important. You know, when you take a step forward, you're just a chemical reaction, bloop, in that direction. You're a rolling phenomena. Things don't model that. Things are all about ignoring the rolling phenomena so you could get a hold of something, so you could get a hold of something that you could have sound footing with, and you could rely that it would be there the next day. So you ignore the fact that once you pick the apple, it's rotting in this small window where it's just an edible apple for a few days, you know. The bigger picture, the more accurate physical picture, as well as, you know, not just physics, but our physical interaction with the world, is these things all look a lot more wave-like, with all of the problems of what is contained, and are the things contained. You know, if the wave is going through a yellow medium, is it yellow, or is the medium yellow and it's traveling through? So is it, you know, the wave is occupying that space. It doesn't necessarily mean everything also in that space is in the wave. That idea comes from the classical epistemology. If we had an epistemology abstracted from our understanding of the identity of fluids and the identity of flows, then we'd have a much better model. And in fact, we do have these metaphors available, and they are used in science. And really, scientists don't have a big problem. They have a problem admitting it, but they don't have a problem dropping logic when it's restrictive. And you can see in the definition of species. Looking in classical philosophy, the idea of a species, of a natural kind, of a dog as a dog, the classification of dog. All right, that's supposed to be what this idea of classification is based on. That there's a material category dog, this dog really is a dog, and so on. Right? And yet, when we've gotten now to our modern biology, we find we can't define species that way. You have to define it in terms of relationships. For example, the obvious one of a species is defined as a breeding population. So they have to be able to breed. So what other animals they can breed with determines what would be officially the species. Okay. I'm somewhat willing to inform people how classical logic works that I'm arguing against, but it's really funny when people think, no, it doesn't work that way, and then agree with me on how it ought to work, but they think that's how logic, it's like, no, pretty sure not. Yeah. So another way of looking at this is, I just think we should think of questions of identity and containment with respect to the identity and what is a part of a wave going through the ocean. That should be the model. That's a more apt metaphor to apply to these things that are essentially flow-based, system-based. We need to go down to things our body interacts with which capture more of the essence of flow. You know, more of an essence of, you know, the Mississippi is the Mississippi. There is a way to identify it. I've gone to the Mississippi 5 times in my life. No, they weren't all different rivers just because the water flew by. That's a confusion of taking this inherent quality bullshit too seriously.